Will Allen, founder and CEO of Growing Power, spoke at the 2012 Green Energy Summit in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
One of the things I noticed with these young people, they had really poor reading and writing skills. So we would, after they did something hands-on, we would have them sit down and write about it. And they wanted to dig deeper. We gave them reading, and it improved their grades, and that's something that a lot of schools around the nation here in our community do today. This hands-on learning that leads to academic excellence. We also did life skill building like canning, a lost art. And also teaching them about how to use tools. And as I started moving along the continuum, more young people wanted to come. I also worked with the juvenile justice system. Some of these young people had gone off and did some really bad stuff, and they were incarcerated for years, and now they were coming back to Milwaukee, and they'd have to go through that transition center. And I brought down compost and planted it above their basketball court, and they would grow food and they would give it back to Second Harvest, Feeding America. And all of a sudden they're giving back. We also, here at Neighborhood House, a project that we did of bringing in compost. There were a lot of thefts of cars. They had shrubs. We removed the shrubs and planted flowers. And what that did, it helped beautify that community, and it also ended the car thefts because people started paying more attention. They were looking at the flowers, and I guess the thieves thought they were looking at them, so that kind of works as a crime prevention kind of things. And the kids, at a time when summer job monies were going away, these kids had jobs during the summer taking care of these flowers. We would also take in vacant lots. I believe this was on 25th and Brown. And drug dealers would, young people would hang out there and deal drugs, and people would just go by oblivious to what was going on. And we rallied the community, brought in about 75 yards of compost, and we did this in one day. And all of a sudden, all that drug dealing stopped because people started looking at the flowers, and I guess the drug dealers again thought they were looking at them. And this also was a job for the kids during the summer. And then folks from out west, from the native reservations where diabetes rates had reached over 50% would come. And also in Inglewood, a community in Chicago where there was a murder a day, we started putting up hoop houses and growing food and engaging the youth. And in 1995, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel wrote a front page story about me working with these kids, and I started getting calls from schools and nonprofits. They wanted their kids to get engaged in what I was doing. This is what our facility looks like today. You can see the transformation. We're powered by a lot of solar systems that you'll see a little later. So you can see the transformation of our home base. This is one of the 20 farms that we operate. And I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because we have 900 slides yet to go. I think I'm kidding. Everybody always thinks I'm kidding when I tell them. We call this our community food center. A community food center is a place where people can come and learn about where their food comes from, purchase food, and just be around people that are trying to do the same thing. Growing Power is one of the only multicultural, multi-generational organizations of our size led by a person of color in the country. I really believe in diversity because that's the kind of, that's what we see in this room today. That's what our nation really is all about. So we really have a very diverse workforce. Folks from every nationality, many countries work at Growing Power. Local folks work at Growing Power as part of our 100 staff that we now have. These are some of the people that visit Growing Power. 15,000 people a year, 5,000 volunteers come there to volunteer and help us on this work that we do. Even these guys. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with them today. But it's really all about passing on to the next generation and working with these youth and that they learn these things. But it's also about locally grown food. something that we really celebrate at Growing Power. We have workshops from January through June, really throughout the year. And we serve food at Growing Power at every event that we have. We also grow about, we're collecting this year 22 million pounds of food and carbon residue to make compost, because it's all about the soil. When you grow food, you have to have fertile soil. And I don't want to pick on this company in particular, but it might be somebody from that company. And, you know, they think green. They say they have over 17,000 acres of wildlife habitat. I've been up to the landfills, and you know, what I've seen is some seagulls and some really big rats, so maybe they consider that too. And of course, their trucks never pollute, I guess, as they rumble through our community. I think they run on electricity, somebody was saying, but I don't quite believe that. But it's really all about the soil. And diverting the waste that we're putting in the landfill means that we have to develop relationships with folks like breweries, and folks that handle food, and our municipalities and our local farmers that have moldy hay that we can buy and help those rural farmers stay in business as part of the recipe to make compost, to grow soil, because that's what we have to do. We have to grow soil. Our soil is contaminated. It's not really responsible to grow in existing soil in the city because it's got lead, high lead levels in our city. It has a lot of arsenic and many other bad guys in the soil. So we need to grow new soil. We do not have any digging equipment. We do not dig down. We put 2 feet of new soil, so it means you have to have thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of yards of compost. And that's what we do. We grow soil because we couldn't grow food without growing soil. And we teach people how to do this. And this is one of our national workshops where people learn how to grow in this 4x4 configuration that takes about 40 wheelbarrow loads of material. And it gives you an idea of how much material you really need. And then we get somebody up there with some good legs and pack it down, you know, make sure we maximize that 4x4 configuration. And of course, everybody's fascinated by worms. We started out with 30 pounds of worms back in 1995, and now we have 7,000 pounds of worms that produce the fertilizer that we need. And then the finished product looks like this. And then if you want to scale it up, one of our composting sites is a 30-acre rural farm right outside of the city in Merton. And then once you have this wonderful compost, you can do this. You can feed that to the worms, and the worms will break that down in arguably the best fertilizer in the world, which is worm castings. And we do this year-round, regardless of what the weather is. We bring in our compost, and those worms break down. They remediate whatever's in that soil. They produce only beneficial bacteria. So a worm will take in, say, 250 million count of bacteria, and once it goes through their body, they multiply it 13 times, and only beneficial bacteria comes out, as the kids say, their worm poop. But these are our other employees, these wonderful worms. I said we had 100 employees. We really have over 1 billion employees, and I really like these employees because they never talk back. They just, you feed them and they just do their thing, you know, and produce this wonderful fertilizer. And it's a great way to engage young people, putting 200 worms in a young person's hands, and it just changes their whole life. So if anybody here wants their life changed, come by Growing Power. We'll definitely change your life. And even this guy, look at him. Not just the kids are fascinated by all those worms, but the adults as well. And we recover all of our worms because they're our livestock. We have over $300,000 worth of worms in our system. So they're worth as much as steers or hogs or anything other livestock. And then we sell the worm compost for $2 a pound. wholesale to $4 a pound. That shovel full of worm castings 8 months ago was carbon and nitrogen. Now it's the highest quality organic fertilizer, and then we turn it into compost tea that works better than Miracle-Gro. And I know nobody in this room uses Miracle-Gro, so you should be using that stuff. We have these worm depositories from 40,000 pound capacity inside greenhouses to 270 yard, 150 yard systems outside. Remember those 3-barrel configurations that you saw? I was able to engineer that into this. This is a 10,000 gallon system in the greenhouse below ground that produces 10,000 fish. Both of these systems is 20,000 gallons of water to produce 20,000 either tilapia or lake perch that are mercury contaminated in Lake Michigan. We can't commercially fish for them in the Great Lakes anymore, so the numbers are so far down and they're mercury contaminated. This is called aquaponics, which is a symbiotic relationship between the plants and the fish. The plants get rid of basically the nitrogen that the fish give off in their waste. And these are closed systems. So recirculating systems. Here's our staff putting in some of the 10,000. We have a relationship with the Great Lakes Institute. Those are tilapia. That's what they look like. Tilapia, tilapia, lake perch, tilapia, lake perch, tilapia. I just wanted you all to know what tilapia and lake perch look like. This is a new fish that we're growing. It's called a black pacu. Anybody here ever heard of that? Black pacu. They're from South America. Probably the best tasting fish in the world. They get up to 60 pounds. This fish has teeth like humans. They only eat nuts, berries, and vegetables. They're related to piranha, but they don't bite unless you hold a nut in your hand and stick your hand down in the water. You might get bitten or something like that. And also we grow some koi as well. One of the things that we're doing at Growing Power is growing black soldier fly larvae. Black soldier fly is a small wasp-like creature that lays about 2,000 eggs. The larvae eat waste. They're 42% protein. So we've developed some systems. As a matter of fact, that barrel right there has got about 200,000 in it. So that becomes supplemental protein for fish and chickens. Now that back area that you saw earlier now looks like this. We have these hoop houses that we're building around the city at various places around the city. You'll see them going up all over the place. We have a crew that goes out, started out with some workforce investment board young people that we trained for a year, and now we're hiring people to join that crew, and we're putting up these hoop houses eventually to be about 100 acres of hoop houses to grow food year-round. We do it without fossil fuels. We use what we call a hot mix, which is a combination of wood chip, brewery waste, which we have a lot of here, and coffee grinds. That creates the most heat in my research, and that helps heat these hoop houses. So we put in all new soil, high fertile soil, and we're able to grow very intensively at $5 a square foot, which equates to about $200,000 an acre of production. That's where we need to be at, because guess what? As we sit here right now, we're losing farmland. We're losing rural farmers still. So this is, we're going to have to grow new farmers, and this is the way that we can do it, by growing food in the city or close to the city, our cities around the country and really around the world, because for the first time, more people live near and in cities than in rural areas around the world. And the population's going to just double in the next 50 years. So how do we feed all of these folks? And how do we feed all of these folks good food that'll make you happy? Because guess what? Our food is our medicine. Every day we take medicine 3 times a day. Some of us take good medicine and some of us take bad medicine, quite frankly. But when you look at the three pillars, when we talk about the three pillars of that sustains us, you have nutrition, you have exercise, and you have stress management. Well, our nutrition's about 2/3 of that piece. So it's really important for us to, if that's 2/3, if we're eating good food, we have a much better chance to stave off a disease. And our healthcare system will not survive unless we come up with a preventative medicine program. And hospitals now are getting involved in integrative medicine, which means that they're going out to the community and coming and helping with programs at nonprofits and others. And that's what we have to do. So teaming up with medical folks like we have with Aurora, Sinai, and other medical professions. And we need to start these programs. This is my grandson. I think he wants to be a farmer. And this is my photographer's son. He's having a Zen moment trying to figure out whether he wants to become a farmer. But one of the healthiest things that we can eat is kale. And it's one of the top 5 healthiest foods that we can eat. We can grow that in really cold climates like this inside hoop houses. Intensive agriculture outside. This is one of our farms in Merton, Wisconsin, where we grow very intensively at that $5, trying to hit that $5 a square foot goal. To be able to grow food outside, it's all about the soil. You have to get your soil right. Our soil is 50% less fertile than it was in 1950. So we have a ways to go, and the only way to get there is to grow new soil, incorporate in our larger farm areas healthy soil and worm castings, and do farming without chemicals, because we don't know what the effects of chemicals, the food that we eat that are grown with chemicals, are going to have on our bodies. We still don't know. There hasn't been research yet. So we need to grow food. We know we need to grow food without chemicals. It can be done. It can be done and reduce the cost. And one of the ways of reducing the cost is about this Green Summit, to really partner with folks that know a lot about energy, like the MREA, one of our new partners that we're going to be working with in terms of reducing the energy cost on farms, because 25% of our fossil fuel use is in agriculture. We need to reduce that. And that's conventional agriculture, industrial agriculture. But all of this food that you've seen so far is grown without chemicals. It's grown with the injection of renewable energy. We have to be able to decrease the production costs, because everybody talks about, well, isn't organic food more expensive than conventional food? Yeah, because it's artificially inflated. But we can change that. We can definitely change that by reducing our production costs, by not using so much fossil fuel in our production, by doing it the organic way or the natural way. And this is intensive agriculture, using more than just one plane in the greenhouse, taking 2,000 square feet and turning it into 3,000 square feet, growing sprouts at $50 a square foot. If you grow an acre of sprouts, that's 44,000 square feet in an acre. You're talking about $1 million of production on these sprouts. And these sprouts we've been able to get into our Milwaukee public school system through Cisco, another one of our partners, who are the only folks that deliver to our school districts. And to be able to grow mushrooms, these only take 3 weeks, these oyster mushrooms. We market these to restaurants for about $16 a pound, and that helps with our cost of our operation. And to be able to grow on 7 different layers inside greenhouses, it's like taking this room right here and starting with the base floor and then stacking food on top of each other to be able to maximize the production. Those are the kind of things that we're going to have to do in the future, taking old buildings and turning them to fish farms. Taking a farm like this, in 6 weeks, we built this farm out from scratch, from straight pipe, steel pipe, bending the pipe, and these were done by the workforce investment young people that started over a year with us. They couldn't even hold a hammer They didn't even know what a hammer was all about. Now they're carpenters. And these are some of them. And we have a crew of and then we have a harvesting crew. But these young people built these hoop houses. This is right on the lakefront in Oak Creek. And we have 16 hoop houses. We're going to put up another 30 down there in the next few weeks. Every day we build hoop houses. These young people, we have a staff of 16 that are going out now, and that's going to increase. We bring in new soil. And this is what it looks like a few weeks later. It's all about the soil. If you have fertile soil, you can get results like this. You can plant intensively, and you can get at that $5 a square foot. That's our goal. Tomatoes, peppers, okra. Not much bug pressure because you're inside a hoop house. And then we grow things like wheatgrass. We grow more wheatgrass than anybody in the state. Very good for you, and we process everything on site. That's how you hold down the cost. Be able to process this yourself, and then you have these wonderful finished products. The preferred salad mix in the marketplace, Milwaukee, Chicago. This is the kind of food we should be eating. We need more renewable energy. Anaerobic digester. I have a partner that we developed this anaerobic digester. It's about holds about 30,000 pounds of slurry that we suck in to produce acetic acid, and then we take that acetic acid and inoculate it and turn it into a methane-producing product and put it in a methane digester to produce methane to run a generator to generate electricity. We work with a microbiologist from the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay on this project. Now we're ready to build out a full-scale system. When we grind it on the exterior, it looks almost good enough to eat, right? Tomato soup or pea soup. Your choice. Solar energy. Because of our construction ability, we have a construction division at Growing Power now. We built this pergola and put up the solar panels, We Energy program that was in effect a few years ago. We were able to get in that program. We also work with Calefi out of the Menominee Valley, a European company, to put up these solar hot water panels. And now we produce 70% of our hot water. Water catchment, we capture all of the water off of all of our buildings. And we reuse that water. And they also double as fish systems. So these exterior water catchment systems that we have, about 35,000 gallons of water, also have lake perch and hybrid bluegill that we're able to market to folks in our community. Another form of renewable energy, we use a combination of wood chip, coffee grinds, and brewery waste to heat our greenhouses. So in the four corners of the greenhouses, we have 150-degree temperature coming off of these piles, and we cover those beds when it gets 25 degrees or lower. So that's another form of renewable energy. We also have over 50 goats. And they're very healthy because we feed them very well. And these are alpine goats. We milk them, and we're going to be producing artisan cheese. And we also have over 500 layers on the farm here on Silver Spring. And we're also breeding, this is one of my projects, we're breeding these heirloom turkeys and Muscovy ducks. And these guys look like some folks I know, so, you know, I kind of feel close to them. We also do beekeeping. Beekeeping in the city is much more productive than bees in the rural communities because there's more flora in cities. Because of the way that we do agriculture, we pretty much wiped out all the weeds and the flowers in our fields in rural communities now with GMO corn and soybeans and other crops that we spray. So we have this tremendous opportunity. Milwaukee is one of the cities that families can have a beehive, and also 4 chickens. And we teach people how to do this, and we market this urban honey. These are some Milwaukee projects I'll go through very quickly. This young lady from Badger Association of the Blind, definitely not handicapped. In a half hour, she learned how to seed, totally blind, how to harvest sprouts. So we work with every Catholic Charities, seniors who wanted a garden. So we put garden on asphalt, put down wood chip, and then brought in our compost and put our compost down. And these immigrants who wanted to farm instead of playing cards now have a garden. Kohl's Corporation, working with Kohl's Corporation, one of the most prosperous corporations in America, wanted their employees to be healthy. They have over 4,000 employees off of Silver Spring Drive. They have gardens at the daycare. We need to start these young people, preschoolers, to learn about the food system before they even get to elementary school. So they can go out in the garden. The city of Milwaukee, the mayor wanted a garden. He called me, wanted it modeled after the garden at the White House. So now we have a garden on Market Street every summer that we put in. Haul down over 50,000 pounds of compost, and we have this wonderful garden that thousands of people get to see. Rockwell Automation, Allen Bradley, they wanted their employees to have healthy food. We have a farm stand. Discovery World, we have a model of Aquaponics. Forest Home Cemetery. Cemeteries across the country used to grow their own flowers. Many of them still have the greenhouses. So we resurrected this greenhouse, and now people are living a little bit longer if they keep them out of that upper left-hand quadrant a little while longer if they eat this healthy food. So we're looking, my point is we need to find spaces regardless of where they are to be able to grow this healthy food. Jackson, Wisconsin, working with Cisco, the largest wholesaler in America, to grow food that goes into the Cisco system and goes to our schools. This year we grew over 100,000 pounds of carrots. This year we're slated, with a meeting we just had, to grow 250,000 pounds of carrots because that's what MPS uses. And they were getting those from California or Texas or somewhere. But now they're going to have local carrots that are organically grown. Thank you. New Berlin, we have a farm in New Berlin, very intensively planted. Washington Park, we put in 40 gardens, working with the Lowe's Corporation, the mayor, and the alderperson for that area. King Drive, we're putting in probably the first of its kind in the nation, an organic 2,000 square foot store in a food desert. This is our new composting site at the MMSD. Another partner of ours had 3 lagoons that hadn't been used for 20 years. Now we're doing our 22 million pounds of food residue and carbon residue on the lakefront. It already stinks there, and one of the things I told the media when we launched this a couple of years ago, that our compost was going to sweeten up that area. You guys know how those sewage treatment plants smell. And we do this every day because we create waste every day, and that waste has to be moved, and we do this every day. But this is what we need. We need to grow soil. We can't possibly scale this up. I have another farm on the old ASCO building on North Avenue, 10th and North, the 55,000 square foot building that's going to be a fish hatchery. So we're cleaning that up right now, and that will be in operation very soon. As a matter of fact, the exterior now has 8 hoop houses. These young folks from the Mawib group, they bit the pipe. They built those 8 hoop houses. We'll be planting head lettuce in another 2 weeks there to be able to get to the market before folks from the outside. We also have all these greenhouse supplies to be able to build straight pipe that we bend, lumber, to be able to, we just put a new farm on 4th and Walnut. 3 hoop houses in the last week were built on top of asphalt. We can grow on asphalt, concrete, rooftops, this material. Bradley Tech students built this off the grid garage, rooftop garden, year-round production. In Madison, we are partnering with the Center for Resilient Cities to put up this school, a total agricultural school. We took down the old building, and the new building will be ready this summer. Boys and Girls Club, Sherman Park, the kids wanted, we brought out in compost, and now these young people are able to grow food. Maple Tree School, we signed a 20-year lease with MPS, and now folks in that area are growing food, and the community's able to come out and eat fresh greens and other products. And these young people are learning how to do it. They learn how to do everything that we do, and introducing them to healthy food, and also 2 hours of academic education in the summertime. They're learning how to measure things, so all of their grades are improved. We also have a program to send these young people to colleges, working with the Blackfeet Nation in Browning, Montana, where diabetes rates are over 50% for the 8,000 people in Browning. They're worried about extinction because they lose 3 people a week at this reservation. So working with the youth, because they're not traditional farmers, but starting with the youth so that they can start eating healthier food and not so much processed foods. In Jackson, Mississippi, Young People's Project, a math literacy program, very successful, realized that they needed healthy food, so we're able to go there. Buffalo, New York, using stimulus dollars, working with the Community Action Organization, we're able to build 50 hoop houses with aquaponics systems, so folks in a city that has a lot of vacant land. This is downtown Chicago. I like this image because here we got corn growing downtown Chicago. Growing Power Chicago, we have 5 farms in Chicago. This is one of them on the front doorstep in Grant Park. They're probably the most aesthetic garden in the country. 150 different varieties, very intensively, growing at $5 a square foot. This food gets distributed in Chicago. Brought down 100,000 pounds. Cabrini Green, probably the most famous housing project on top of asphalt. This is, as gentrification happens from the east, this project, this is a 4th Presbyterian church funded this project, George. We've been there for 7 years, partnering with the 4th Presbyterian Church, who looked at this as a way of mending the divisions between folks that were coming into the community from the east and the residents at Cabrini Green. And it really worked as a peace garden and a production garden, and now has a youth core. This is our latest farm in Chicago. First Lady Michelle Obama visited here 2 months ago. And this is an old truck terminal that we turned into, we're turning into a farm. Jackson Park, a 1-acre farm funded by Nature's Path, an organization out of Vancouver who's putting 39 gardens across the country. Downtown Chicago, this was our first project at Lot 37 in downtown. Lozano School on the north side, we brought in compost. Ames School on top of asphalt. These young people now have a garden. Backyard gardens for seniors who have a farmer's market. We're at the Chicago Flower and Garden Show for the 3rd year. We'll be there this weekend. This is our display to show people that urban agriculture can be productive and aesthetically pleasing as well. And these young people would probably be doing something a little bit different if they weren't working on our farms, and they get paid to do that during the summer in our CSA program called Market Baskets, a year-round, and some of our international work in Kenya, where soil fertility is also a problem. It's a problem around the world. Food, we lose over 5 million people a year in Africa and Asia and South America and Central America for the lack of food and water. more than any other wars. So food is so important to Ukraine. Of course, they lost 50 million people during the reign of the Russians years ago. Now they have control over what was considered the breadbasket of Europe. Now new farms are popping up. Even in central London, behind walls, you'll find these little farms like this. And these are some of our 15 regional training centers around the U.S. In Fort Valley, Georgia. These folks from Fort Valley University, the other land grant. Also in Mound Bayou, America's oldest black township, started after the Civil War. These folks are going back into agriculture down there, and we're working with them. They're one of our regional training centers, growing 7 Harvest in Forest City, Arkansas. 7-acre piece of land, turned it into a farm. Breaking new grounds in Louisville, Kentucky, working in low-income communities, growing soil to be able to grow this healthy food in an area in Louisville that's really under stress. Putting up Aquaponics. Lynchburg grows an old rose greenhouse where the Kentucky Derby winners' roses used to be grown years ago, and now they're growing food in those rose greenhouses. Growing soil, because the soil has a lot of arsenic in that area of the country, and growing these young people's lives. In Minnesota, Women's Environmental Institute in Minnesota, 80-acre farm right outside of Minneapolis, also working with the only native reservation with 10 tribes inside a city in Minneapolis. D-Town in Detroit. Detroit has 169 acres, 169 square miles of land, only half of it's occupied. They have thousands of acres of land. They're starting to grow food. There are no retail grocery stores in the city of Detroit. None. They have to go outside in the suburbs to purchase their food, but this group is putting up Stiletto Garden, another model in the backyard. A young lady wanted a farm in her backyard, so we went up, and they're one of our regional, this model of having a farm in the backyard. The designation of a farmer is if you can produce $1,000 in a calendar year, you're considered a farmer. In Cleveland, the Forgotten Triangle, 26-acre agricultural zone, piece of land that was a dumping ground. All the houses were burnt down years ago. Blair Grocery, this young man in the 9th Ward in Detroit, in New Orleans after Katrina, is now growing food. Working with young people. Bed-Stuy, this past summer we built a farm in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, New York. These two reverends, husband and wife reverend team, are putting healthy food in their baskets at their site, and now growing fish and growing food. University of District of Columbia, we went there this past year. We have a year contract with them. We excavated a site. Now they're going to be composting for all the projects in the DC area. University of District of Columbia is the land grant for the District of Columbia, just like University of Wisconsin-Madison is a land grant. The Great Lakes Institute, a great partner of ours, led by Fred Binkowski, and this is what's going on at the Great Lakes Institute, because our lake perch are decimated. If we had 2 million pounds of fillets right now, we'd have them sold by tonight. So to get back there, we need to do research. So we have a research project with them at Growing Power, and this is what Fred Binkowski, the senior researcher, does. Those are ribbons of eggs. That ribbon will produce about 20,000 baby fish. And what he's doing there, he's taking the male sperm and mixing it with the eggs, and then that goes into a tank to be hatched out. This is at Growing Power, our new system that we're putting in. We're doing research on 7 different systems, and this is some of his staff that's helping us set this up. And the future. This 5-story vertical farm, the first of its kind in the world, will be constructed up on Silver Spring Drive. because we have many cities like New York and San Francisco, Tokyo, Vancouver, where we don't have a lot of land, but we have to grow food. If we're going to survive as a species, we're going to have to figure out how to do this, so we'll be doing a lot of quantifying on how these buildings will work as we start thinking about 50 or 100-story buildings in those type cities. But this is the kind of stuff that we're going to have, and this is the kind of stuff that these young people can participate in, because there are going to be hundreds of different categories of jobs for these young people, not just putting plants in the ground, but renewable energy, nutritional jobs, finance jobs, truck driving jobs, electricians. There's hundreds, planners, architects, you name it. Thank you very much. Take a few questions. I'll take some questions.
We have time for some questions for Will, so if you'll come to the microphones in these two side aisles, right here and right over here, Will will be glad to answer your questions. Yes, sir.
Hi, Will. First of all, I'd just like to give you some kudos for this awesome job that you've been doing and spreading the knowledge. Really appreciate it. I know that you had mentioned that most of the less than 1% of the food that we consume is actually grown locally. I have heard of a program in the Appleton School District where they have incorporated growing the food as like a science program. They have the students actually growing their food. And I know you had also mentioned that we're starting to grow carrots for the MPS system. But just, over the last few years, MPS has really started to pre-package everything. And my kids are MPSers, and they tell me about the lack of nutritional value in their lunches. I'm just wondering if there's been any kind of talks with more integration with the MPS system. Maybe we can get these kids more science programs and growing. You're putting in all these farms all over the city. I'm just wondering if we can get MPS kind of involved more in that.
Yeah, well, MPS is very involved. As a matter of fact, we are growing on some MPS land. We've been able to negotiate that project on Maple Tree School. That's a 5-acre site. We have a 20-year lease on that. Every school in that at Maple Tree has a garden. So that's one way of introducing healthier food to the kids. We're also training MPS teachers. I was an education major in college, and one thing they don't teach you is how to do hands-on education. So we have teachers that are funded by the National Education Foundation here in Milwaukee that come to 5 months of training at Growing Power, and those teachers are putting in systems. Some of them have already started aquaponics systems in their classrooms, and they don't necessarily come from the science area of those schools, because what we're looking for is teachers that want to go beyond that 330. Many teachers walk out of their school a step behind the students. We are looking for those teachers that have the passion, that want to work with students and around the food system, but they're not necessarily science teachers. Some of them are history teachers or math teachers and so forth. As far as getting food into the school system, it's a very difficult thing, because the allotment is about $2 per student per meal.
Sure.
Now, if I gave everybody in this room $2 and said, go out and get yourself a really healthy organic meal, I don't think you could do it. So that's what kids are eating. The kids are eating some of the worst food. MPS does probably a better job than most school districts around the country, because they have introduced the sprouts into an afternoon snack program and the carrots, and we're going to increase that, and we hope to add more products, because there's 4 entities involved in this and partners, and everybody kind of gave a little bit to make this happen because of the $2 cost per student. So that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to compromise and give a little bit and think of this, because this work is really about social justice and food justice, and folks really have to think beyond just making a lot of money.
Thank you so very much.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking science teachers, Tim Birch.
Thank you, George. Well, as you know, the city of Milwaukee allows people to keep 4 chickens in their backyard, and you know, backyard chicken keeping is becoming more and more popular. The question I have is, in the winter months, you can't grow food for the chickens, but there's an incredible amount of restaurant food waste, and I know you have relationships with restaurants, but I'm wondering what can people do who maybe have a backyard flock approach, you know, if you approach your neighborhood restaurant and say, hey, give me your waste, they're going to kind of look at you a little bit odd. So.
Right. Great idea. That's what we do. We feed our chickens food waste. Obviously, we can't have our chickens running around the neighborhood and so forth sourcing their food. So we simulate a situation by feeding them food waste. About 50% of their food regimen is food waste, and going to restaurants is in your neighborhood is a way of collecting that food waste and feeding it to the chickens, of course, and that's a great idea, and that's what folks should be doing. The other thing about chickens, you have those 4 chickens, and you got them in a chicken tractor, and you're moving them around your grass, and they're fertilizing your grass in the summertime and so forth. In the wintertime, chickens produce 5 therms of heat. So a lot of people say, well, I can't have chickens because they're going to get cold. No, they're not going to get cold because they produce heat, chickens. So in our situation, we have to vent our greenhouses that we have them in the wintertime because there's so much heat created. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
How have you been able to get schools to allow fruits and vegetables in without like signing waivers, or how do you deal with overcoming the barriers of integrating fruits and vegetables that you've grown?
Well, there's several different ways that we're attacking it. One way is we're working with MPS. So it's an MPS approved, they approve the fact that we're getting food to them. They only have one delivery system into the public schools, and most public school systems around Racine and Brookfield and all those school systems, they get their fruits and vegetables delivered by Cisco. Okay, so Cisco comes to our place, picks up the sprouts and the carrots, and they deliver them to the schools. That's the only way we can get them into the schools. So it's a four organizations. There's MPS, there's Malio Produce, because they're the processor of our carrots. We grow them, we wash them, we take them to Malio. They cut them into coins, they package them, they go to Cisco. Cisco delivers them to the schools. So when I have a meeting with those folks, it's four partners meeting, figuring out how we're going to do it and how we're going to cash flow it, because that's an important piece to make sure the farmers that are participating get a fair price.
So just a quick follow-up. The students that have gardens on their own school properties, are they allowed to eat those foods, or are they having trouble encountering the ability to eat them?
They're allowed to eat the foods, you know, and that's what we need to do. Even at the daycares and so forth, you know, they're allowed to eat the food. It's safe. Yes.
Hi, my name is Lux Harris. I'm a student at Lakeshore Technical College. My question is in regards to your fertilizer. You mentioned that farms are able to use this fertilizer. Do you have a plan where farmer operators or owners can purchase the fertilizer on a wider scale and where it would be financially beneficial to them? And is this at a point, what would be the first step that a farmer or owner could do to get in that direction?
Well, every farm that's doing sustainable farming, I'm talking about chemical-free farming, is using some type of input. Now, it's cheaper if they're able to grow their own, as you call it, fertilizer or compost on their farm, and that reduces their production costs. What we do is we are training over 1,000 farmers a year to do a variety of things, and of course, growing soil is probably the #1 thing that they come to Growing Power and learn how to do. And we do a lot of consulting around the country with different growers to be able to grow their own inputs. Because that's, like I said, that's the #1 thing. If you're not able to grow soil, we can't scale this up. This, you know, it's such a buzz. I call it the good food revolution. which is the title of my book that'll come out in May. So it's a revolution now. It's not just a movement. It's gone to that stage where people want to grow food, but if we don't, the biggest challenge is the soil. If we don't get beyond that, it won't happen. So we put a lot of emphasis and a lot of training on growing soil, whether you're in the urban area or you're on the fringe in a rural community growing food. Those farmers are going to have to grow soil or get it or purchase it. We use about 3/4 of what we produce, and we sell about 1/4 of our compost to other folks. We're starting a program, and probably announce it next week. It's called 20,000 Backyard Gardens. We're going to try to influence 20,000 people to grow gardens in their backyards by supplying the compost and also helping them with shaping their gardens or putting them in a raised bed, a box, or whatever, in their backyard, side yards, or whatever. And that's going to change the dynamics of how people source their food, because that's what we used to do. We used to grow food in our backyards and so forth. We need to get back to that, but we need to have compost to do it, because you can't grow in the existing soil. Much of our soil has lead in it, and when you plant plants, the lead gets taken up by the plants, and we eat that. That's not a safe thing for any of us. So putting 2 feet of new soil on top of the existing soil, that works. And it's a proven technique, and it's, we get tissue samples by the University of Wisconsin-Madison that we work with, so it works. We know it works, and we're trying to get more people to do it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shalia Carter, and I have 2 simple questions. One, I was wondering how could myself and my children be a part of this, like learn how to grow? And then question number 2 is, can you simplify this of how it relates directly to biochemistry?
Well, I won't get into biochemistry, but I will tell you how you can get involved. Okay. We try to keep things really simple in terms of what we're doing, in terms of growing soil. If you're able to grow healthy soil, you can grow healthy food, it can grow healthy people, it can grow healthy community. This is really about sustainable communities. If you don't have a sustainable food system, every city today has a 2020 plan to become green and sustainable by 2020. No city will ever reach that goal if they don't have a sustainable food system. So as I talk to these mayors and other folks around the country, they realize that, but they don't know how to do it. So that's what they have to figure out, how to build the infrastructure, how to build a production infrastructure to be able to do that. To get involved, we have Youth Corps. If you're interested, you can stop at Growing Power anytime and apply for your kids to get into our Youth Corps if you'd like. Okay. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Let's thank Will Allen.